Civility blends listening, respect, and cooperation. But it seems too many conversations turn into confrontations. If we endeavor to understand what we have in common, where could this all lead? Join us as we effort to better ourselves and our communities.
Welcome to Spotlight on Civility, a conversation sponsored by Delta Dental. Join our host, WXYZ Editorial Director, Chuck Stokes.
Hello and welcome to a very special conversation about civility. Joining me today is Margaret Trimmer. She is Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Delta Dental of Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. Oh, you might as well say the world is her domain. And also joining me is Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson, journalist extraordinaire, acclaimed journalists from their respective locations. And we appreciate all of you joining us today on this very special occasion. All right, Margaret, normally I start with ladies first, but if you pardon me, I'm going to start with the gentleman here. Stephen and Nolan, I've watched from afar umpteen number of years as the two of you have taken each other on. Ideologically, you guys have had fierce battles. You've been sort of like Kentucky racehorses going at each other. Stephen, if you would go left, Nolan would go right, and vice versa. How is it that out of all the people in America, the two of you ended up with this brainchild in becoming the poster representatives of a civility project? Nolan, let's start with you.
Well, thanks, Chuck. Yeah, I mean, we have been going at it for 13, 14 years. I mean, that's what we do, and we do have very sharp political differences. And yet, over all of that time, despite our very passionate disagreements and sometimes very heated discussions, we've been able to maintain a strong friendship. And, that's been intentional, and we've worked at that, and, we've made a commitment to it, but it's become increasingly rare for people who feel different politically, who hold different views, to be able to talk across that divide and have meaningful, productive conversations without having it break the relationship. And so, we took our experience and are trying to talk to other folks about how you can do that.
All right. Stephen, your take on this, because as Nolan said, you guys have taken each other on, but he also mentioned a key word, and that's friendship. Have you always been friends, or did that come about when you started really listening to each other?
I mean, I think it certainly grew as we learned to listen to each other. And it grew as we learned to set reasonable expectations in terms of the engagements with each other. Nolan and I, you throw any issue between us and we could really get at it. And this is not a kumbaya, everybody sit and hold hands kind of relationship. We really deeply disagree passionately about things. We see value in the exchange itself, in understanding why and how the other comes to be so wrong, in a manner of speaking. And I think that helped us grow a friendship, that when you aren't trying to better the other person in these exchanges, when you aren't trying to convince them that they're wrong, you're just trying to help them understand where you see it from. I think you see beyond the differences. You see beyond ideology and see that this is a person who you share maybe lots of other things in common.
Sure. Margaret, if I can draw a rough analogy here, it's nice to have a fancy new car with all sorts of bells and whistles in it, but if you don't have any gas to go in that tank, it doesn't do you much good. Stephen and Nolan came to you with a great idea, but it's been helped by the fact that you said, okay, I'm going to put some sponsorship. I'm going to put some bucks, some dollars behind this. What is it that Delta Dental saw in this idea? They said, we have to get behind this from a corporate standpoint.
Well, first of all, Chuck, you know that the pillars on which we do our community work are building healthy, smart, vibrant communities for all. And you can't do that unless you have some level of harmony. Healthy communities are harmonious communities, and we believe that we have to have productive, constructive, difficult conversations if we're ever going to solve problems, right? And so we see that this is really fundamental to the work that we're trying to do to build up our communities. And I guess we also just had a fabulous slogan. Delta Dental cares what goes in your mouth as much as we care what comes out of it. But it's true. We all have to learn to listen more, learn more, so we can better communicate and solve problems. Bottom line.
Stephen and Nolan, how does this work? Because I understand that there's a tremendous amount of interest. I talked to your executive director, and she said that you are getting emails and requests from across the nation for this virtual program that you put on because of the pandemic, and that it's almost difficult for you all to keep up with the demand.
We start with the premise that all good people come to their opinions in the same fashion. They take the information and the data available, they filter it through their own experiences and values, and they come up with an opinion. And if that opinion's different than yours, it doesn't mean there's something wrong with them. They're not stupid, they're not evil, all the other characteristics we tend to assign to the people who disagree with us. They just have different life experiences and different values. And we ask people to get to know what those values and experiences are first before you start trying to have meaningful dialogue. And Steve and I have done that ourselves, a discussion that focused only on why we are who we are, so that we don't make assumptions about each other. And I think that's what's really leading to some of the uncivil discourse today. We make assumptions about each other without trying to figure out what it really is that motivates the other person.
Sure. Stephen, I remember some years ago up on Mackinac Island, former Governor Bill Milliken, the longest-serving governor of this state, making a speech about civility. He got a standing ovation from that audience, Democrats, Republicans, Independents. But now we're still at each other's throats, so I'm not sure what they were cheering for because they went back to the same thing. What's the danger if we don't become more civil and have these type of agree to disagree without getting into the gutter?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we can look around us and see what the alternatives look like. January 6th of last year in Washington, D.C. is probably the lowest point, or one of the lowest points in our history in terms of the breakdown of civil dialogue and the threat that that poses to the institutions that actually hold the republic together. One key point about this is that we're not telling people to avoid difficult conversations. We're saying lean into the most difficult conversations about race and politics and culture, the things that really divide us, and find a way to have a discussion that doesn't leave the participants feeling angrier or not heard or dismissed, but also doesn't assume that either side is winning or convincing the other, just that we understand each other in a much deeper and more important way.
Sure. Margaret, I'm going to give you the last question. Delta Dental was the lead beginning sponsor on this. I understand other sponsors have come on board. How well is this connecting with the corporate community? And long term, what's the goal? What do you hope 5 years, 10 years from now, you can look back and say, we accomplished?
We've actually hosted 2 civility sessions with our staff. They were brought back. You guys were brought back by popular demand. People are hungry to learn more about one another. They're hungry to find common ground. And tremendous progress can be built on common ground. Perhaps that's the only ground on which we can build progress, build better businesses, build better government. And so that's ultimately my goal, that we will find greater common ground inside and outside our business community and build a better world as a result of it.
All right, Margaret Trimmer, Nolan Finley, and Stephen Henderson, thanks so much for joining us, kicking off this very important discussion about civility, and we will stay in touch with you on it as well. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
My pleasure. When we return, a look at a Metro Detroit college dedicated to transforming civil conversations for the next generation. We'll learn their vision to teach civility for college credit and the advantage it could have for students after they graduate. Stay with us.